Welcome, be seated. Welcome back, folks. Good break. We are ready to continue. Mr. Wood, you can call your next witness.
April Ayala.
Okay. All right, ma'am, if you'll come right up here to the witness stand, please. If you'll remain standing, please. Raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Be seated. Mr. Wood, you may proceed.
Thank you. If you will be so kind as to give your full name for the record, please.
It's April May Ayala,
And for the benefit of the court report, could you spell your last name?
A-Y-A-L-A.
Are you related to Mr. Colley?
Oh, yes, I am.
And how are you related to?
We're cousins.
Okay. Okay. And where do you live?
I live in Port Richey, Florida.
Okay. And how would you, I mean, I know you're related to Mr. Colley, but how would you describe your relationship as a cousin to Mr. Colley?
JR is more like a friend than anything to me.
I'm sorry, can you get a little closer to the microphone? I want to make sure everybody can hear you.
It'll move. You move closer to me.
JR is more like a friend to me than anything. He was always very supportive to me when I went through some things in life and things like that. And that's kind of how our relationship was.
Okay. Have you been close to him like all your life, or was there a time period where you got closer to him? Could you describe that a little bit?
Well, we grew up in Illinois. He was very much younger than I was. So he was born when I was probably about 10 years old. I remember that. They then moved to Florida. So there was a gap in years. I moved to Florida 20 years ago, and then we all reconnected.
So where in Illinois did you live?
We grew up outside Chicago. I grew up in Carpentersville, Illinois.
And do you know where Elgin, Illinois is?
Yes, sir.
And do you know if that has any relationship to Mr. Colley's birthplace?
Yes.
Okay. And for the record, what would that be? Is that where he was born?
Well, he was born in Elgin.
Okay.
They lived in Elgin as well.
Okay. So you moved to Florida when? About 20 years ago?
Yes, I moved to Florida in about 1997.
Okay. And basically, why did you move to Florida? What was going on with you?
I started a job. I got a job down here. The job was paying better than what I was making up there. Possibly it was less than I came down with my family.
Okay. So are you married?
I'm divorced.
Okay. Do you have children?
I have 2 children,
Ages?
30 and 32.
Okay. So did either of your children hang out, socialize, grow up with Mr. Colley, the JR?
Not really. There was years between them, so if we did family things, they were around him, but not a lot because they did their own things.
Okay.
We were the adults and they were the children.
So when you came to Florida, how would you describe for the jury how you became closer in your relationship to Mr. Colley?
Well, I mean, I was always close with his sister, Rhonda.
Which one?
Rhonda.
Okay.
Rhonda and I were always like sisters rather than cousins. And just being around Rhonda, JR, the family, is kind of how things came about.
Okay. When you started becoming close with Rhonda, was she married at the time to Dan?
Yes.
Okay. Was JR living with, well, let me ask you this way. When you started, getting closer to Rhonda, was she living where she's living now?
No.
Where was
She lived in Orange Park.
I see. Okay. And did there come a time when, during the time you've known Mr. Colley, where you've seen him around his kids?
I've seen him around his kids a few times. I've seen a lot of things on social media as well, but yeah.
When you saw how Mr. Colley is around his children, aside from the social media, how would you describe his interaction with his kids?
He's a very hands-on dad. He just liked to be there. He'd like to take his son fishing and do that kind of thing when they were birthday parties and things like that. It was the entire family together. Just what I would describe as a very hands-on dad.
Would that be applicable to both children?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did there come a time when you worked for Citibank?
Yes.
When was that?
Wow. Probably, well, I retired about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and when I moved, so it was probably about 2 years ago.
When, I'm sorry?
About 2 years ago?
So,
And I worked there for 20 years.
okay. So you retired from Citibank?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Yes, for the record?
Yes.
Okay. So what did you do at Citibank?
I have multiple roles within Citibank. I started out in customer service, then worked into the fraud department, went into scheduling, did scheduling, and also worked in the workforce department and in the commercial parts department.
Okay. During the time you worked with Citibank, did JR, Mr. Colley, work there as well?
Yes, when I worked in scheduling, we worked in mortgage, so we were on the same floor near each other, so we saw each other quite a bit.
You know, the building that Citibank was in, where's that located?
The building that we were in was Building A, Building B.
Well, the jury wouldn't know that. Is that in Jacksonville somewhere?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. I apologize.
That's
Yeah, it was in Jacksonville.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to see JR and Mr. Colley in, working? How would you describe him as an employee?
I actually didn't see him actually working. I saw him at work. I saw him as he was going to the gym. We'd see each other. He'd come to my office occasionally. How are you doing? Things like that. We had some conversations in my office about what he was going through and things like that. But I didn't actually see him physically working because we worked in two different departments before.
Okay. And were you ever at any time like a supervisor for him or anything like that?
No, sir.
Did Citibank have a program that involved its employees volunteering, doing charitable work, anything like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We had multiple things that you could volunteer for, multiple groups. I was involved in several of them.
Okay. How did that basically work? Did Citibank tell you, hey, you've got to go do this, or could you volunteer for it?
Oh, no. Anytime that you did anything like that, whether it was the Women's Network, the Spanish Network, the African American Network, it was something you chose to do. If you decided to volunteer, you could volunteer with set up during holiday functions and things like that. It was strictly volunteer. They didn't tell you you had to.
How often? Was it like once a year, once a month? How often was that?
Well, they had people volunteer to do setup for Halloween, for Christmas, for Easter, for any type of holiday they had. And then depending on what network you were involved in, plus they had just things that were off the cuff for the March of Dimes and the cancer, things like that you could volunteer for. There was always something that you could volunteer for.
Do you know if JR or Mr. Colley ever did such work, volunteer work at Citibank?
I couldn't say that I do.
Okay, all right. Now, when you retired 2 years ago, was Mr. Colley still working at Citibank?
When I retired, he was in jail.
Okay, you're right. So you retired in 2016? Then.
I took my retirement in May. I took my pension and my 401k and left last May, so a year ago.
I see. So when Mr. Colley was arrested in 2015, you were still working at Citibank?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you know what department he was working at the time?
He was working in mortgage.
Okay. Now, how would you describe, well, you know certainly you're good friends with Rhonda, how would you describe Mr. Colley Jr.'s relationship with his family, parents, sisters? How would you describe that?
The Colleys have the kind of family that I always wished that I had. Excuse me. They were always very close and there for each other. It's a very strong family. They would do anything for one another, and I always had aspired to have a family like that. My immediate family.
Okay. Would you see that closeness or have you seen that during the time that you've known J.R. and Mr. Colley?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Do you have brothers or sisters yourself?
I do.
Okay. Would you just, in comparison, would your relationship with your siblings be closer or less close than what you observed between Mr. Colley and his siblings?
My relationship with my siblings couldn't touch what the Colleys have.
Okay. How would you describe, and we talked about the sisters, his relationship with his parents? Do you ever see him around his mother and father?
Their whole entire family is a very close family. They're all about family, and it doesn't matter what you're doing or where you're going, as long as you have your family. That was really kind of all that mattered.
Have you ever seen Mr. Colley around animals or pets, that sort of thing?
My cousin, Jared?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. He loves animals.
Okay. How are you, tell the jury how you know that or what you've observed about that.
Well, there's been times when we'd have get-togethers, family get-togethers over at his sister's house, and she's got several dogs. And he's always playing with them and giving them treats and, just wrestling with them and things like that. We're always, walking around dogs. His dog was there and her dogs were there, so it was like a house full of dogs with the adults.
I see. And of course, for the record, when you're talking about the sister's house, you're talking about Rhonda?
Rhonda, yes.
Okay. Did you ever know Mr. Colley to do any coaching or work?
Yeah, he coached his son.
Okay. What sport?
Baseball.
Baseball. And do you know about how long ago that was?
Oh my goodness, I know it was probably the baseball season prior to this happening.
Just a minute here. I don't have any other questions. Thank you very much.
Any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Masai, I will excuse, Mr. Wood.
Yes.
You are excused, Ms. Thank you. Don't forget that. Okay, will you call your next witness?
Freddie Cartwright.
Encourage you to come right up here to the witness stand, right here. You remain standing, please, and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. You can take a seat. You may inquire, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Cartwright. Would you give us your full legal name for the record, please, sir?
Frederick James Cartwright,
And for the benefit of the court, could you spell your last name?
C-A-R-T-W-R-I-G-H-T.
And are you related at all to Mr. Colley?
No, sir.
And do you know Mr. Colley?
Yes, I do.
All right. And when I say Mr. Colley, I'm referring to the defendant. How do you know Mr. Colley?
I met James, who's been a friend of mine for over 20 years.
How did you meet him?
We met in middle school. He introduced himself to me, shook his hand, and we've been friends ever since.
What middle school are we talking about?
This was in Ormond Beach, Florida.
Okay. And what grade? Were you guys in the same grade?
Yes, we were both in 8th grade.
Eighth grade. Okay. And did that friendship continue after that?
Yes, it's continued on ever since. Excuse me.
Okay. How would you describe the nature of your friendship with Mr. Colley?
He was a very good friend to me. He was looked after me, helped us with our family. When we first met in middle school, there was an incident where some older kids that should have already been in high school they were causing trouble, threatening to beat me up. Had a few friends behind me that were I've known since first grade. Nobody wanted to turn to them for their help, and they didn't want to give me any assistance. A few moments later, I noticed that James Colley standing right next to me. He asked you gentlemen, do you have a problem with this young man? And he said, if you have a problem with him, you have a problem with me. They were fixing to kick my ass. If it wasn't for that young man over there, I probably would have been beaten up. Luckily, the principal intervened. Nothing ever came of it.
So So you're in what grade at that point?
This is 8th grade.
Okay. So you're still in 8th grade, you're 13?
13, 14 years old.
And kind of almost a silly question, would he have been also 13 or 14 at the time, Mr. Colley?
He's about a year older than me.
I see. Okay. And so then did you continue on through high school with Mr. Colley?
Correct. Also, if I could say one more thing about the middle school. When he took my side, he just met this man a week ago. He's been there ever since. And then shortly after that, middle school, a couple of weeks after my incident, the same group of bullies bullied another student at the buses. They actually pushed this guy, punched the guy, threw the guy's book bag on the ground. James was going to his bus. I was going to my bus. And then James intervened, stopped that situation, and picked the young man up off the ground and then handed him his book bag to make sure he was okay. Then
You saw this?
Yes. And then we proceeded to high school. Our friendship continued.
Okay. Now, what high school are we talking about?
It's the Seabreeze High School,
Okay.
Palmer Beach, Florida.
Did you both go through high school together?
Yes.
Okay. Did you graduate the same year?
I graduated in 2000 from a private school.
Okay. So you had transferred out of the high school to a private school at some point?
Yeah, I ended up temporarily dropping out to help provide for an income of my family's household.
I see. And when that happened with yourself, was Mr. Colley still going to high school?
He was still at Seabreeze.
Okay.
He graduated from there. He graduated in class of 99.
Okay. And you continued your friendship with Mr. Colley all throughout high school?
Correct.
Okay. Friends come in different formats, and then when we talk about friends, I mean, would you guys like hang out a lot together?
I consider him one of my best friends. He's like a brother to me,
Like a brother to you?
like an older brother, someone I looked up to.
Do you have brothers, by the way?
I have a sister.
Okay.
I have one sister, one brother. They're both older than me, so I was pretty much like an only child.
So in that kind of time frame, the middle school, the high school, were you guys going into each other's houses? I mean, how was that going?
After about everyone was driving, we would hang out at the Colley residence. So we were over there probably for New Year's parties, like holidays. So we would see his sisters, and mom's father during the holidays.
I see. So you were also, would you say you were close to his family? Like his sisters, his parents?
I was a little close to his father, got along fine with his mom, and then a little bit later met the sisters through the holidays towards the end of high school.
Okay. And for the record, when we talk about sisters, you're talking about Wanda and Crystal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, after you went into the private school after Seabreeze, are you continuing to stay friends with Mr. Colley?
Yes, we stayed in contact from 23 years ago until today.
Okay. And the nature of your relationship, a close friend, like a brother, did that continue on until his arrest, 2015?
Yes.
Okay. Was there ever an incident regarding your mowing business or something that he was involved in?
Yes, my father had a mowing business. He was semi-retired, and then he started mowing just to stay active, have something to do. He was getting bored around the house, and he ended up getting cancer, and he had to work more. They were traveling to Gainesville back and forth, so the household needed money for medical expenses. And James, at the time, James was working at going to Seabreeze, working at Home Depot. Then he was also cleaning 3 Bank of Americas at night in town. So he was working 6-7 hours a day, going to school, keeping a good GPA, honor roll. And then he didn't have very much time off, but on the weekends, I'd often find him helping my dad cut grass. They'd be working on Saturday or Sunday, and I'd show up to come help, and James would already be there, working with my father. Wouldn't take any money, wouldn't accept anything. He'd just wanted to help out.
Okay. So James was on the honor roll in high school?
Yes, he always had 3.2, 3.5, whatever it was for honor roll.
Okay. And then when you say James was working at the Home Depot, is that the Home Depot in Daytona?
Daytona Beach, he worked at Home Depot in Daytona Beach all the way from 1 or 2 p.m. till supper time. Then he would go and eat supper, and then he would turn around and do janitorial services at 3 banks in town.
Okay.
That took 3 to 4 hours.
Okay.
He did that for 4 or 5 years.
And so in town being Daytona Beach, Ormond Beach?
Banks were, he lived in Ormond, but his main job was at Home Depot. And then he did 3 banks in Ormond Beach, closer to home, closer to high school.
Okay. Would you describe James as a hard worker when you saw him doing this?
So he had a very good work ethic, worked more than most people I knew. Looked up to him for that. Was proud of him.
Okay. Did you already testified, you stayed in touch with him. Have you seen him, know of him to continue working for other companies, for other folks?
Oh, yeah. Then he proceeded to leave Volusia County and he came up to St. Johns County, and that's when he pursued the banking industry. He did
Do you recall who he worked for in the banking industry?
I do not.
Okay, all right. Did you continue to stay in touch with him after he was doing when he got the banking jobs, that sort of thing?
Yes. He did some college here. I think he got his A or AS. And then he got into the banking industry. He's been in the banking industry ever since.
Did you ever hang around or involved with Mr. Colley in the race car activities?
He was a big-time racer. I didn't get to travel to those events due to I was always working as well, trying to pick up where he started. But I think that's why him and my father got along pretty good. So my dad did a lot of racing in the 60s and 70s. And James was also a racer, so.
Did James keep his own race car?
Yes.
Did you see him working on the car? Did he have mechanical
I
abilities?
saw him working on the car, and then my dad taught him some mechanical abilities. And that's something that JT, his father, and James, they love to go do as father-son activities. They would go racing. They'd go to
So when JT, that's James's father?
Mr. Colley.
Yes, sir.
They would go to Gator Nationals. They'd travel all over the state. I never made it to those events because I have a teenage son from 2004. So I was busy with work, running 2 businesses, and taking care of my job.
Okay. And have you hung out with James and his children?
But yes,
Okay. How would you describe him as a parent?
he's a very good father. Every time we spoke, since Trey and Avery, we would talk about the weather, work, how's family, and the rest of this conversation would be Trey's done this, and it was all about Trey and Avery. One time he came by my house for New Year's, he was headed to his parents. He stopped off and gave us a card, Happy Holidays. I gave his son some rain boots and a rain jacket that my son outgrew, but it probably would work for Trey. And he called me for months on end. Trey's so happy you gave him these boots and this jacket. That's all they would ever talk about. I think Trey was 4 or 5 years old. And then my son was 3 or 4 years older than him, but I had some stuff I never threw out, so I'd give him to Trey. That's all I ever mentioned. Trey's so happy you gave him this nice raincoat and these boots.
Did you see JR the closest within his family, to his parents, his sisters?
He had a really close relationship with his father. He got along well with his mom. And he seemed to love and care for his sisters. It seemed like they all got along, but I didn't spend a lot of time with his siblings.
Have you, in recent years, have you spent much time being around JR's father at all?
Yes.
Do you know of his condition?
Yes, I do.
Tell the jury about that.
Well, he's had a heart attack. He's had surgery once, and then he's not doing too well now. And I'm pretty sure he's overwhelmed with all of this scenario here. And I believe he's going to be with us much longer.
Okay.
It's not looking good.
Do you know where his father and his mother live?
They still live in Volusia County, on the beach side in Orland.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, you're right.
Is Mr. Cartwright excused? Mr. Wood?
He can't be excused, Your Honor.
Cartwright, you are excused. Thank you. Go ahead. Mr. Wood, you can call your next witness.
You John Schwingham?
All right, sir, you come to the witness stand right here. Please remain standing, please. Raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, ma'am.
Be seated. Mr. Wood, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. If you could start it out, give us your full legal name, please, sir.
My full name,
Your full legal name.
John Richard Schwinghammer.
And for the benefit of the jury, and this may take a moment, how do you spell your last name?
S-C-H, Wing, W-I-N-G, Hammer, H-A-M-M-E-R.
Very good. What do you do for a living, sir?
I work at Citibank, I work in finance, I'm a financial analyst.
Okay. And where is the Citibank building that you work at?
It's in Jacksonville, south side of Jacksonville, near Baptist South Hospital.
How long have you worked there?
Almost 16 years.
16 years, okay. At that same building or somewhere else?
We had an office off of Bay Meadows Way, but then we moved to the new office in 2004.
Okay. And did there come a time, well, first of all, are you related at all to Mr. Colley?
No, sir.
Okay. Did there come a time when did you ever work with him?
I worked at the same office with him. We were not in the same departments, but we were in the same office building.
Okay. And this is at Citibank?
That's it, yeah.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that when you first met Mr. Colley, that was through your employment at Citibank?
Yes.
Okay. And for the record, if you're in different departments, what department did Mr. Colley work in?
He worked in mortgage. We didn't meet at that department. We have a fitness center there, a gym, so that's where I met him and befriended him. That's where we, started our friendship.
Okay. And so let's talk about that. You became friends with Mr. Colley through work, basically?
Yeah, so again, we, some people they go to the gym at the beginning of their shift, before their shift, I should say, during lunch, after work. So he and I both would work out during our lunch shifts, and that's where I just befriended him, met him, introduced myself, and we just started to talk and chit-chat. And then I would run into him after picking up my kids at school, because both of our kids went to the same elementary school. Both kids were in the extended day program. That's just kind of where I met him. We live in Brogoff area, so just ran into each other that way.
I see. So you didn't live in Marabella, but you lived kind of near Marabella?
Yeah, I used to live in Sevilla, which is a neighborhood near Marabella. It's by the Gate gas station off International Bell Parkway.
Okay. So you really became friends with him about what year again?
2014.
Okay. And for the benefit of the jury, you mentioned about a gym. Was there a gym there in the Citibank building?
There was, yes.
Okay.
So we, work out together. We both go. I am instant message, coordinate days and times to go, and we go to the gym 2 or 3 or 4 days a week. Just workout partners. Push each other and try to encourage each other to lift more weight and squat each other and just things like that. And talk about hunting, fishing. We both enjoy doing that. So then through that, we just had similar interests, and we would hang out outside of work. We both go hunting. He started showing me, taking me to the Gowana Wildlife Management Area. He showed me some of his secret spots for duck hunting. We would go fishing out at Bologna Beach area. So, good times, good, good friend, really good friend.
Okay. So if you could kind of give the jury an idea of outside of work, maybe how often you would get together with him for whatever activities, whether it was hunting, fishing, or anything else?
Yeah, so, excuse me. So, he was a really good friend. We would, during hunting season, go duck hunting out at Guana. We would talk about hunting. Our families actually went out to dinner multiple occasions. We both almost went out to the beach. His profile picture on Facebook is catching fish. Both of my kids are in the picture with his kids. Hanging home and fish. Both our kids were in athletic sports. He was a coach for flag football league. Our kids were both in the same league. So we really, just were together, hanging out through just being in the same kind of activities, kids' activities. Both of us enjoying the same activities, and then just the kids' games and whatnot.
So you have children?
Yes, sir.
How old, the names, boys, girls?
2 boys, they're 10 and 7, Jacob and Zane.
Okay. And
they're similar ages to Trey and Avery.
I see. And so so there were times when your children got together with JR's children as well?
Yeah, most times. I mean, at work, it was he and I that were obviously hanging out together, working out together, because kids don't go to school, or to work. But yeah, and the kids were both in the same after-school program, and then when we would hang out together, it would be just either me and my kids, and James and his kids, or both of our families with our wives. The kids were playing together, they were friends, had fun, they got along really well. They'd be over at our house, or we'd go play at the playground. I mean, it was just a normal friendship that you have with another family.
And I didn't ask you, are you married, sir?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you're getting together with his family, is your wife also involved in those activities when you're doing stuff with the kids?
Sometimes. She was there some of the time. Otherwise, it was just, he's my friend. My wife, got along with him well. We got along with his wife as well, too. So we all did get along together, but it was more my friendship with him. So it'd be 2 of us hunting or fishing, or be me and my boys and him and his kids. So it was more often us hanging out, but there were often times when we would all together, all 8 of us get together.
Before I forget, I know you were in separate departments. Did you ever, at Citibank, did you ever have occasion to see how Mr. Colley interacted with his fellow employees?
He seemed to get along with people just fine. His own friends, I would go down. I'm on the 3rd floor, so I'd go down to the 2nd floor where his department was. And, he'd be social and just normal interactions and friendly with his coworkers. And then even other guys in the gym, Spencer and Terrell, other friends of ours that would work out, 4 of us would kind of get together. James and I would kind of, do our thing, and Terrell and Spencer would be together, and we just kind of help push each other and just try to, get bigger muscles and exercise.
How would you describe Mr. Colley as a father and the way he interacts with his children and they with him?
He was a great dad in my point of view. He was, he was there all the time. He was there all the time. Whenever I hung out with him as a family, it was always him with the kids. He interacted with them very well. He interacted with my kids very well too. They really enjoyed hanging out with him, with the other kids. He just was in my eyes, a great dad.
Okay. Now, did you ever socialize any with his, immediate family, sisters, parents, that sort of thing?
Not very much. A little bit. We did go to Chuck E. Cheese when it was for Trey's birthday. His family was there. We went to his birthday party. I think it was towards the end of May. And had Harry's Seafood over in St. Augustine. So we interacted with them a little bit. But it was primarily with James.
Okay. Hey, Chris, you want to show? Thank you. Can I have that marked as defense A? show you a single picture and ask if you recognize the contents of that picture.
Yeah. So that's my sons, Jacob and Zane, and his son Trey, his daughter Avery. He's holding the fish jack that we were at the beach together that day. My wife Tanya and Amanda were there as well. They were hanging out, kind of sunbathing, laying up, getting tan, and we were just running around with the kids and catching fish. It was just a really great day.
Which beach?
So it was south of Guano, but north of Volano, because it's Guano Beach.
Okay, all right. And about how long ago would this have been that the picture shows?
It says August 5th, 2015.
Okay, all right. I'd like to, and does this picture depict the activities that occurred on that day at that beach?
Yeah, it was a great day. It was fun at the beach, and we just had a great time with both of our families. Normal, fun afternoon, summer fun.
Okay. Judge, I'd like to admit this is defense one.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
No objection to receive this defendant's exhibit.
And may I publish it to the jury?
You may.
And that was his profile picture on, and then keep speaking, or?
Just
question.
one minute.
Oh, all right.
Folks, you'll have all the exhibits from this case as well in the jury room when you deliberate your verdict.
Now, did you ever know, well, let me actually ask you one additional question. In your work at Citibank, were you involved in any charitable work, anything like that through Citibank?
Me personally, yes. Our company is big on giving back to the community, so we offer volunteer days for everyone for once a year to attend and participate in local community service or just charitable events. I never personally volunteered with James during one of those things, but I know from talking with him or an email or something about that, about him either attending or being part of the Dragon Boat Race, which I think is some kind of charity in Jacksonville. So I hadn't been part of it, but I know their company does promote those kind of things. I know that he was part of or nominated in the trike race at our work to do the mortgage, like main cyclist or something like that. We just do, activities internal, whether it's for the community abroad, for the city, or just even, sort of public relations, like internally within the company to make it a more fun environment.
Is that something you volunteer for, or are you required or mandated to do that kind of work?
No, it's not mandatory. You choose to do it if you want to. It's not, you're not reprimanded if you don't, and you're not really rewarded if you do. It's just except for the internal reward thing that you get from doing it. But they encourage it and they, promote that as just one of our values.
And you're aware of Mr. Colley doing that type of activity through work as well?
I know I mentioned the Dragon Boat Race item or event, and then I believe I have an email where me and Rhonda were giving him kudos or props for being the trike cyclist guy.
Is this like trike cyclist for like kids or?
No, it's like a big tricycle. It's just imagine like a really big tricycle.
Okay. And there's some sort of race going on with it? How long ago was this?
I believe we do it every year, and you have a drag go around commons and stuff, and they make it like a big event. People, teams dress up in like different themes, like 80s hair band theme and stuff.
Okay. Did you ever know Mr. Colley to be involved in any kind of coaching activities?
Yes. So I mentioned earlier he was, a coach for Little League. He was a coach for, the flag football league that Trey was in. My sons were in the same league. I believe he was coach for a Little League baseball team too. I think the team were the Reds. So he definitely enjoyed doing those activities, and being with his son, enjoyed sports. He's a big sports guy. Loves Notre Dame. And just
Of Notre Dame, okay.
Yeah.
How did you know that?
just from talking with him in the gym and just from knowing the guy. I mean, he's just a big football fan, sports fan. And
How would you describe him as a coach? How did he deal with children that he was coaching?
He was really good. He was really patient, really kind, really good to teach them just fundamentals. Just really good to coach. Kids loved him, loved hanging out around him from my experience. I know he hurt his back running after one of them as they were scoring a touchdown flag football. At the game that we were at watching Trey. I don't know if it was Trey scoring the touchdown or not, or just one of the kids, or it was the game-winning touchdown. But I mean, he just got excited about that. Just a normal sort of typical good guy.
Okay. I don't have anything else. Thank you so much.
Should I cross-examination?
Yes, sir.
So you excuse Mr. Wood?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir, you are excused. Can I sit thinking as well? Yeah. Mr. Wood, go ahead.
Jason Deloach.
Sir, if you come up here to the witness stand. Right over here. Thank you. And if you'll remain standing, please. Raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear.
And you may be seated. Mr. Wood, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you give the jury your full name, please, sir?
My name is Jason Deloach.
And for the benefit of the court reporter, could you spell your last name?
It's Deloach.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
I work in the mortgage industry. I'm a supervisor of an operations team.
Okay. And who do you work for?
I work for PNC Bank.
And where is that located at?
We have an operations center in Jacksonville, although it's a national bank. So while we may not have as much of a footprint in this area, they're very large throughout the country, obviously.
Okay. Well, first of all, are you related at all to Mr. Colley?
No, I'm not.
Okay. And how do you know Mr. Colley?
We began working for what was Ascendant Mortgage, eventually became PHH. It's pretty common in this area, in 2002. James and I, we went through training together. I believe it was 6 weeks, if I recall. And we were also assigned to the first operations team together. So we worked very closely, but we became very fast friends.
Okay. And this is in what kind of mortgage work or what?
Yes, it's in a mortgage operations center. So once the loan's originated, it goes to an operations department, and that's where we process the loan. So it's pretty strenuous, stressful work, but it takes a certain personality to be able to do it. Excuse me.
And where is this located at?
This was located in Jacksonville. They've since changed names. There's been a few buyouts, so Lender Life, I believe, is the name they're under now.
Okay. How long did you work for them?
I worked for them until, oh my goodness, forgive me, 12 years.
Okay.
I believe so. I believe it was until 2014, if I remember correctly.
So when did you meet JR?
In 2002.
2002. And so what was your title, I guess, if you will, at PHH?
I was a loan processor.
I see.
Same as James.
Okay. And so did you work like physically close to Mr. Colley?
Oh, yes. We went through the 6-week training program together, but we were also on the same team afterwards. So we mostly did loans that were originated from New York. We represented a private client. So we were on the same team. We sat next to each other for at least, if I recall, 6 months. But even after I moved to a different team, we were still extremely close. We took lunches together. We would go out to dinner together after work. So we were very, very close.
Okay. And how long have you been friends with Mr. Colley?
Since 2002.
Okay. So that friendship has continued on?
Yes, it has.
Okay. And how would you, how long did you work with Mr. Colley there at PHH?
So we worked together for at least 10 to 12 years. Even when we were on separate teams, again, we still saw each other, so we may not have worked directly next to each other. We were in the same building, we were on the same floor, and we frequently made trips to see each other, regardless of where we sat.
Just so I've got my notes right, did PHH ever change to like Chase Bank or any other?
No, PHH, when we started, it was Defendant Mortgage. They switched to their original name of PHH Mortgage, which had eventually, it's been bought and sold a few times since then.
Okay.
But for the time that we were working there together, it was PHH Mortgage.
So how would you describe Mr. Colley as a fellow employee?
Oh, very, very reliable, very trustworthy. With Defendant, PHH, it was highly customer service driven. And it was also, again, as I said, extremely stressful because we would have loan inventories of, I've had one of 150. I know James has probably had at least 100 to 150 at some point in time. When you have to have daily contact with that many people, it's difficult, so it takes a certain kind of person to do it. We're compensated, obviously, based on the number of loans that we close, but none of that matters if you have poor customer service. So we had to be very high, and we had a really high rating in the industry. I myself, I've averaged about 95% would recommend. It basically meant someone would recommend the bank services. And that largely, almost completely fell on our shoulders. James always had extremely high customer service ratings. He had a way of talking to people on a particular level that, it made them feel comfortable. Even if, say for instance, and this happened to me as well, we would have loan officers that maybe had a poor relationship with a client. They may have spent a day on the phone with these people, whereas we had 30 to 60 days, sometimes 90 in certain cases. So you have to build a rapport. These people might have had a horrible relationship with the loan officer, but we could actually save that relationship and have a very satisfied client at the end of the process. And he was fantastic at it. Between productivity, he could find the right balance between productivity and building that rapport and keeping very good customer service.
So I'm imagining the process when we're talking about mortgage financing where you're required to gather financial documents, other types of things in order to close on the mortgage. Is that what I'm kind of?
That's correct. So the processor would see the loan from the point just after origination to the point of closing. So we would, even though we weren't closers, we didn't oversee the signing of documents, we would still see the client all the way through to that point. So appraisal orders, the loan approval, we had to provide the client with any information, any change on the loan, we would give to them verbally.
Okay. So you would also socialize with JR after work?
Indeed, I did.
Okay.
Very frequently.
And that continued regularly during your time together at the?
Yes, it did, and even afterwards. With James and I, we both had some major life changes. He got married, he started having kids. For myself, I got married. So, you don't get a chance to speak with each other as often as you want. I think every one of us has been in that situation. But James was always one of those people where, I talked to him for 6 months, but when we finally got a chance to speak again, it was like, a day had passed.
Okay. When you're working together at PHS, did you get paid commission?
Yes, we did.
All right. And how would you describe JR as a producer and his commission income stream?
He was very strong. He was one of the strongest in the company. To my knowledge, I didn't get to see his paycheck, but, James was a frugal man, so, usually if he spent money, it was on his friends. It truly was, or on his family. When we would socialize, you kind of get an idea if someone's doing well financially when they're picking up the tab or maybe even buying dinner for the friends that they're with, and I've seen him do that on numerous occasions.
Okay. Did you ever spend time with do you ever see Mr. Colley spending time with his children?
Yes, I did. Not on an extensive basis, but the few times that I would go to the house and visit, you could tell he was a very loving father.
Okay. How would you be able to tell that?
It was a general interaction with his children. You could see it in his eyes and the way he spoke to them. He was very, very calm and very comfortable with his children. You could tell when someone cares. And I hate to be perhaps not as descriptive, but you can see the love in a parent's eyes when they look at their children.
Did your family ever interact with his kids? Your children interact with his children?
No, I do not have children.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Now go back to the employment situation. Did you ever see JR mentor any other employees there?
Did I ever see him?
Mentor or train or assist other?
Yes, I did. So any new employee that was assigned to James' team, usually, pardon me, he would take them under his wing. He would talk to them, explain different processes. We were so busy at certain times because that industry is so cyclical. When things get very busy, it's hard to take time and actually spend it speaking to someone who's new. You're so busy trying to deal with your own accounts that to take time away from them, it truly is a sacrifice. And he did that countless times. If someone came to him for a question, he would have an answer for them. And I've seen other processors turn people away and say, I don't have time to talk to you right now. I've seen that more times than I care to. I've never seen James say that to anyone.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
Any cross-examination?
No.
Is Mr. Deloach excused?
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Deloach, you are excused. Have a good day.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Wood?
John Wright. Can I have this moment, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you.
Somebody retrieving Mr. Wright.
Well, we're checking.
Don't want to stand up, Mr. Wright. We are ready to proceed. Okay, Mr. Wright.
I have. I was on a smoke break. I apologize.
All right, let's
John Wright.
All right, Mr. Wright, if you'll take a way to stand right here. Remain standing. And you'll raise your right hand, please stand.
Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Wright, you can be seated.
Thank you.
Proceed, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Your Honor. If you'll start us off by your full legal name, please, sir.
John Matthew Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
And are you related to Mr. Colley by blood?
No.
All right. And are you married to somebody that is?
I am married to his sister, Krista.
Okay. Now, where do you live?
I live in Jacksonville, in Mandarin.
Okay. And how long have you and Crystal been living, or been married?
19 years.
And do you and Crystal currently live together?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Now, let me kind of back up a little bit. Did you first meet Mr. Colley, Jr. through Crystal?
Yes, sort of.
Okay.
We actually, me and the Colley family, they moved into our neighborhood in Illinois when I was 5 years old. So that's how I met the whole family. I don't even know if Jared was born yet, actually.
Where in Illinois?
South Elgin, about 40 miles due west of Chicago.
And we've mentioned this a couple times, but would Elgin be spelled E-L-G-I-N?
Yes.
Okay.
Not Eglin.
Not Eglin. Okay. Different place. All right. So then, at some point in time, did you come down to Florida?
Yes. Rhonda and Crystal came back up to Chicago for a mutual friend's wedding, someone we all grew up with in the neighborhood. And we kind of reconnected then and started a long-distance relationship, and I ended up moving down in 98.
Okay. And so you moved down to where in Florida?
I moved down and I stayed with Rhonda and her husband Dan in the Orange Park House in Freckles Court. I lived there for like 2 months and I got pretty much employed pretty quickly, and I moved out. My brother moved down and we got an apartment together.
I see. So what kind of work were you doing at that time?
I worked in the computer industry. I was kind of on contract off and on, but I was a network engineer at that point.
So when you came to live with Rhonda and Dan for that short period of time, Was JR staying there?
No, he hadn't graduated high school yet. He was still in Ormond Beach.
I see. All right, and then, so you moved out, you got your own apartment, and then eventually you married Crystal.
Yes, 99.
Okay. Where'd you guys get married?
We got married at, I don't even know the name of the Baptist church in Orange Park, the big one at the corner of College and Blanding.
I got you. All right. And, okay, so then how would you, now obviously JR is related to his sisters, all that, but over the years, how would you describe your, relationship with JR?
He's like a brother to me. We do all kinds of stuff together. Him and his dad have the race car, which is the quarter-mile car. It's a drag car, not really a loopy-loop car. We would do stuff, work on that. We would go travel down to Pink's, Pink's All Out, where they would race for their cars and money. Ford Fest weekend down in Orlando, you go down for the weekend and they have sanctioned racing stuff and stuff like that. And honestly, me, him, and his dad, and my other brother-in-law, Dan, boat riding on really sports stuff all the time, watching stuff on the weekends and calling each other all the time about certain sports stuff, typical guy stuff.
Okay. Did you help work on the race car too, or?
Somewhat. They were more mechanically inclined than me, but they would teach me some stuff, and I've learned some stuff. So.
Okay. Now, when they say they, you're talking about his
him
father
and
too?
JT.
Okay. And his father goes by JT?
Yes.
Okay. And would you go with them when they would go like out of state to the races?
I went the Ford Festival in Orlando for the weekend. I went down with them. We went to Gainesville to the Pink's races. We would, and other times they would have test and tune races on the weekend where you just take the car out and pay the fee, get in and test the car. I would go with them and hang out. Yep.
Okay. All right. And so when you say that JR is like a brother to you, what do you mean by that? What does that mean?
Well, he was just a lot of things. When I first moved down here, he's a bit younger than me still, but just accepting of me and the family, because he doesn't probably really remember me from when he was little and they moved down here. He was only like 5 or 6 when they moved to Florida. So, and just throughout the years, we built up a good relationship, and I actually lived with them at one point.
Lived with who?
JR and Amanda.
Okay. And when would that have been?
In 2010, Trey was a little baby, and I was out of work because when the market crashed, I'm a real estate appraiser. I had pretty much lost my business. And I worked a couple of odd jobs, and I got laid off on December 31st of 2009. And in the end of February of 2010, JR had contacted me and said, hey, what would you think about moving in with us? And at this point, me and Crystal were separated and not living in the same house. And taking care of Trey during the day, and we won't charge you rent. And I was collecting unemployment at the time because I had gotten laid off. And and that also got me down closer to my daughter, who Crystal lived with Rhonda at that point with my daughter. So it wouldn't be such a long hike back to Middleburg where I was staying.
And what's the name of your daughter?
Savannah.
How old is Savannah now?
Savannah's 16 now.
Okay. And so back then when you were living with Mr. Colley, how old would Savannah have been?
She would have been about 8 or 9 at that point. Yeah.
I see. And was JR working back then at that time?
Yeah.
Do you remember what he was doing?
Merrill Lynch or PHH or Chase, actually. I think he was at Chase at that point. Yeah, he was at Chase because I know that because during that year that I lived with them, I renewed my appraisal license. And he actually helped me get a job at Chase because he knew one of the managers, John Scarabuzzi, and he had found a review appraiser job and sent me the link and said, apply for this. Even though it was actually a hardship to them because they weren't paying me to take care of their kid, he still did it anyway because it's the right thing to do. So I applied for the job in December. I got the job started in January, I continued to live with them for another 2.5, 3 months. And then I moved on to buy my own place.
I see.
But I started paying rent and, you know.
So by that time, you were employed with Chase?
Yes, I still am.
What do you do for Chase?
I am a review appraiser in the mortgage department. I review appraisals that come in for mortgages
I
to
see.
make sure they're valid and good.
Okay. So have you had opportunities to observe Mr. Colley interact with his children?
Oh, absolutely.
How would you describe how he...
You know, it was a normal, you know, he'd get home from work, and Trey was somewhat little at that point still, but he would get home, go change, we would normally go right out to the backyard and sit out there and throw the ball at a dog, because their dog, Jackson, needed to get some exercise and run around, and Trey would be out there with us and whatnot, and but even after that, when I was, we would go up to the pool a lot, me and Trey and Jay and Amanda, of course.
Some sort of community pool or something?
Yes, in Marbella.
Okay.
Because I lived with them in Southampton on Austin, the house they were renting, and then I was still living with them when they bought the house and we moved
Okay.
to Marbella.
And so would you describe him as a good father?
Absolutely, yes.
And did you see
He
him...
was a great uncle too to my daughter. I mean, I wouldn't.
That was my next set of questions. What kind of things would he... When you say he's a good uncle to your daughter, what does that mean?
Just nurturing, maybe teaching her how to do something, or just playing with her, having fun with her, or, you know, never like picking on her or dismissing her at all. Just being part of the family as well as, you know, always, he would take, you know, as his kids got older, always taking her fishing with him. Not always, but, you know, my daughter was with Jay and Amanda 3 or 4 times a week until, you know, things started maybe going bad. And so she was around a lot.
Okay. All right. And from your observations, Savannah enjoyed being around JR?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Would you ever see JR play, interact with other children in the neighborhood?
Sure. You know, I know Gail and Mike have a couple of kids. Sean is one. Sean would be over a lot when, even before Avery was, well, actually, I don't know. Yeah, I think even before Avery was born, they were real little still. But,
Sean is a gentleman that has Down syndrome?
yeah, Mike and Gail's son. But he would be around, and there was another neighbor, a couple of houses to the right, I think he had autism too. Would be around, and, you know.
Another child, another kid?
Yes.
And how did JR treat that child?
Fine, yeah. You know, I would go to the, I went to a lot of the baseball games the first year Jay was coaching Trey in the Little League. Over it was at Valencia where they played, the league played.
When would this have been, roughly?
I don't know if the first year was 2013, 2014, one of those years. I think he did it 2 years in a row.
Right. Did you ever see James coach football?
You know, yes, I think I went to 1 or 2 games. Not quite as much as I did the baseball. But,
The baseball. Okay. Did, from your observations, did James seem to enjoy coaching the...
Oh, absolutely.
Coaching?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, how would you describe JR's relationship with his parents and sisters?
Very close, very tight-knit group, as they always have been since I knew them in Illinois.
Okay.
Like I've known his parents since I was 5 years old, so, and always very close. Even if I would try and maybe break up a little argument between him and Crystal, they would both tell me to stay out of it. That's how they need to finish their business, and then, you know, that can't interfere in the family. So.
Okay. Now, you mentioned certainly Mr. Colley working at Chase, and
Yep.
had you known him to work at any other places?
He was at Merrill Lynch for a while, PHH, Chase. When he was in, I remember, I think when he was in high school, he was doing landscaping for the golf course and working at Home Depot and cleaning banks. And I've never known him not to really, even if he was out of work or laid off, you know, where I think he got laid off from some place for a couple months, but he got severance, and he was very actively looking for another job. He even went to school to get his MCSE, which is the Microsoft Certified Network and Consultant or whatever it is, certification. He was doing that. That was even, I think that might have been right after high school. He did that, maybe a couple of years. Always trying to, you know, like I said, he helped me get out of Chase.
So it'd be fair to say you had steady employment?
As far as I can remember, yes.
Okay. Can you just check the notes, Judge? Rhonda has dogs. Do you have dogs too?
Yes, I have a new dog now. My dog Cubby died a couple of years ago after 12 and a half years. She was an older, big German Shepherd.
How would you describe JR around animals?
He was great with his dog. And, you know, when they got their dog Jackson, he was a big chocolate lab. He was great with it, you know. Always out doing something. And he would just let the dog come with him. And whether we do walking around outside the neighborhood, whatever, Jackson was a good dog. He was a good owner. And, you know, he was always good around his dogs. Even the dogs I had when he was in high school.
I don't have anything else.
Any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
Is Mr. Wright excused?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wright, yours.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for today. We'll go ahead and break for the day. Let me remind you overnight, please do not listen to, read, or watch any media accounts of the case. Overnight, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any research of any type. Leave your notes here in the courtroom. We'll get started tomorrow again at 8:45. As soon as I have everybody gathered up, we'll get you up here and we'll get started at that point. So I wish everybody a good night. If you all will follow Mr. Gray out. See you all. Good night. Anybody else remain? You all can be seated. We're going to the courtroom until the deputy say the hallways are clear. Before we go to the evening, we just address a few housekeeping matters. Has there been a decision yet as to whether or not the defendant is going to testify, or do you all need some more time on that?
I think we're good, Judge. I think if you want to go through the colloquy now,
What's the decision?
I think it's not going to take the stand.
Not going to take the stand. Okay, Mr. Colley, let me have you raise your right hand again. I know it placed you under oath a couple weeks ago, but do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, let me ask you some of those same questions that I asked you last week and the week before. Are you under the influence of any drugs, alcohol, or narcotics or medication?
No, Your Honor.
Are you currently suffering from any type of mental illness?
No, Your Honor.
Do you understand everything going on here today?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, your lawyer, Mr. Wood, just advised me that you made a decision to not testify in this portion of this trial, so I want to go over that with you. Is that in fact your decision?
Yes, my lawyers have advised me not to testify, so I am taking that advice at this time.
Do you understand that ultimately the decision is yours?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, after consulting with your lawyers?
Yes.
Okay, have you had enough time to consult with your lawyers about this?
I have, Your Honor.
All right, do you understand that you have the right to testify if you so desire?
I do.
All right, do you feel that you need any additional time to speak with your lawyers?
I do not.
All right. Has anybody promised you anything in order to get you to waive your right to testify?
No, Your Honor.
Has anybody threatened you in any way in order to get you to waive your right to testify?
No, Your Honor.
All right. And are you making that decision freely and voluntarily of your own free will?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I will go ahead and find the defendant has freely, voluntarily, and intelligently waived his right to testify during this penalty phase. He is competent, coherent, and alert based upon my observations of him and discussion with him, and did knowingly make this decision after speaking with his lawyers, after being advised of his right to testify. All right, and should you change your mind at any time, Mr. Colley, before the defense rests in this matter, let your lawyers know, and they'll let me know, so you can change your mind at any time. You understand that?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. We will go ahead and be in recess until tomorrow at 8:45.
Yes, sir.
You made it through all of your witnesses for today.